My name is Mia Dalka, and 3 months ago, my boss looked me straight in the eye, smirked in front of the entire product team, and said, "This is why women don't lead." Then he highlighted my entire folder: 10 months of research, diagrams, performance projections, and code, and pressed delete. Everyone in that meeting room froze. Some glanced at their screens, pretending not to notice. Others held their breath. One guy actually laughed under it. But me? I blinked once. Then my phone rang. And when I answered it, what I said made him go pale. Let me take you back to where this really began, because these stories don't start with the final insult. They start much earlier, with subtle patterns that no one calls out until they become impossible to ignore. 14 months ago, I joined Elixis Labs as a senior systems engineer. Not a glamorous title, not something you put in a headline. But behind the scenes, I was the architect behind a product that was going to reshape the way hospitals manage critical patient data. It was secure, scalable, and, most importantly, human-centered. I was brought in by the former CTO, Julian Arman, who left 3 weeks after I started, and that's when Logan Riker took over. Logan was sharp, charismatic in that overconfident, smug sort of way. He shook my hand the first day he came on board and said, "So, you're the girl who likes databases. Cute." I thought I misheard. But over the next few weeks, I realized that was just his style. The kind of guy who thought inclusion meant bringing women in to decorate the meeting table. At first, I ignored it. I was here to do a job, not to win anyone's approval. I buried myself in the product, the back end, the user feedback loops, the AI logic for flagging anomalies in patient vitals. Clients started noticing the improvements. Our beta demo scored 18% better than projected in usability. Hospital administrators requested more updates. And somewhere along the way, Logan started asking for status checks twice a day. But he never asked for my ideas. He never asked how I got the numbers. He just hovered, waiting for something to go wrong so he could pounce. One day during a product review, I presented a streamlined solution for data encryption that could have reduced storage costs by nearly $2.6 million annually across our partner network. Instead of reviewing the code, Logan interrupted me with, "Mia, do you have any actual engineering background or just enthusiasm?" My jaw clenched. I wanted to scream, but I knew better. Because the worst thing you can do in rooms like that is react. So I nodded, thanked him for the feedback, and kept working. Over the next 4 months, I compiled everything: codebase, analytics, integration logs, into a secured folder. I worked nights, weekends, while Logan was golfing with investors. I built what was essentially the spine of the company's future platform. And then came the meeting. Quarterly planning, full leadership team, investors looped in by video. I was told to walk them through the product vision, but right as I connected my screen, Logan cut in. "Actually," he said, "before Mia presents, let me show you something interesting." He walked to the front of the room, took the mouse from my hand like I was a child, navigated to my folder, and said it. "This is why women don't lead." Click, delete. I felt my stomach drop. Not because I couldn't recover the work, I could. It was backed up. But because of the message he just sent. He wanted to humiliate me, publicly, casually, like erasing me was a performance art. But that's when my phone rang. I didn't hesitate. I picked it up. "Yes," I said calmly. "I'll take the CTO position at your company. I accept in the room?" Silent. Logan blinked. His smirk faltered. "Wait, what?" I turned to him and said, "You just made my exit easier than I ever imagined." But trust me, that's just the moment that changed everything. The real story? It's what led up to that call. The choices, the betrayals, the secret I'd been keeping about who was really watching me work behind the scenes. In the next chapter, I'll tell you how that job offer came to be, and how Logan unknowingly helped secure it himself. Because sometimes the most satisfying revenge is when they hand you the weapon themselves. 3 months before that meeting, the one where Logan deleted my folder and told an entire room of executives that this is why women don't lead, I was sitting alone in the break room, microwaving leftover Thai food, when someone I barely knew sat down across from me. Her name was Neha Ramesh, senior UX researcher, usually quiet, polite, invisible by choice. She looked up from her salad and said, "Hey, what you said in that product huddle yesterday about ethical data filtering for misdiagnoses? That was brilliant." I blinked, surprised. I didn't even realize she was listening. "Thanks," I said. "I wasn't sure anyone noticed." She smiled. "A couple people noticed. One of them asked for your name." That someone turned out to be Cora Eastman, co-founder of Ethratech, one of the fastest-growing medtech firms in the region. Cora had been sitting in on a product walkthrough as a visiting consultant for a hospital partnership we were piloting. I didn't even realize she was there. But apparently she noticed what Logan didn't, because the next morning I received a LinkedIn message. Short, precise. "Hi, Mia. Would love to hear more about your system architecture work on that Elixis prototype. Do you have 15 minutes sometime this week?" I stared at the message for a full minute. Then I took a screenshot and emailed it to myself, just in case. We spoke that Thursday. It was supposed to be 15 minutes. It turned into 90. She asked smart, probing questions about my data model, my real-time sync system, the latency issues I solved during the rollout. And when I told her that I'd done most of it solo, she paused and said, "You realize that's CTO level work, right?" I laughed. It sounded ridiculous at the time. I was still stuck being talked over in meetings where Logan referred to me as database girl. But Cora wasn't joking. "You think 10 steps ahead," she said. "Most engineers can't think past the next sprint. You're solving structural problems." After that call, she didn't offer me a job. Not right away. She just said, "Stay in touch and keep doing what you're doing." I did. Over the next 2 months, we exchanged emails. I shared articles, white papers, updates on new client feedback from the hospitals. She asked deeper questions. Never pushy, never aggressive, just watching. And meanwhile, things at Elixis were getting worse. Logan started taking credit in front of execs for the same architecture I built. He'd say things like, "We've been restructuring back-end integrations," even though he hadn't written a single line of code. When I privately confronted him about it once, he shrugged and said, "Leadership is about narrative, Mia, not details. Learn to sell or stay invisible." That was the moment I knew I was never going to be promoted. Not by him. Not in that building. It didn't matter what I built. He saw me as an obstacle to his spotlight. So I stopped waiting for his approval and started documenting everything. Not for HR. Not to fight him, but for me. I compiled detailed records of every innovation I was responsible for. I built a private portfolio, architecture maps, live demos, process documentation, all detached from proprietary Elixis material, but showcasing the thought process behind my work. And every few weeks, I'd send a small update to Cora. Not a pitch. Just a, "Hey, thought this might interest you. Here's how I solved this challenge." Then one day, I got the call. "We're ready to expand," she said. "We've been scouting candidates for CTO, and you've been top of our internal shortlist since March." I thought I misheard. "CTO?" "Yes," she said. "And I'm not offering this out of charity or politics. You've been operating at CTO level. You just haven't had the title or the respect." She told me they'd matched my current salary, doubled it, and were offering full strategic control over their next-gen platform, plus equity. All I had to do was say yes, and I didn't. At least not right away, because I knew something Logan didn't. He still had one last chance to prove what kind of leader he was. One last chance to rise with me, instead of trying to bury me. I gave him that chance in the form of a final presentation. A real-time analytics dashboard that would cut diagnostic lag in critical care centers by 42%. It was the same folder he deleted in front of the entire team. The moment he did, I answered my ringing phone and said what I'd been waiting months to say. Yes, I accept the CTO position. But what Logan didn't know, what no one in that meeting knew, is that he himself had been part of the reason I was hired. Because sometimes your enemies don't just underestimate you, they accidentally help you rise. In the next chapter, I'll show you exactly how Logan's behavior during those final months made Cora's decision even easier, and how his obsession with control became the very thing that destroyed his credibility. Because when you treat someone like they're invisible, you often forget they're watching. And sometimes, so is everyone else. By the time I accepted the CTO offer from Ethratech, I wasn't angry anymore. That surprised me. I thought I would be. I thought I'd feel the burning need for revenge or justice. But instead, all I felt was clarity. Because Logan didn't just delete a folder, he deleted the last illusion I had that people like him could ever be reasoned with. He didn't want partnership. He wanted ownership. Of credit, of control, of perception. And the most dangerous part? He was good at it. At least, at first. After he deleted my work in that meeting, the room fell silent. No one spoke up. No one protested. People stared at their laptops or the floor. I knew most of them didn't agree, but no one wanted to challenge him. That's how people like Logan survive. Through silence. But what he didn't know was that his silence had been leaking cracks for months. And now, I want to show you exactly how he destroyed himself. One misstep at a time. Let's go back 6 months. Back when our lead client, Paragon Health Systems, began preparing to scale their pilot across 5 new hospitals, I was responsible for that integration. They loved the responsiveness, the intuitive interface, the load time improvements, and they sent in written feedback, twice, mentioning me by name. Logan accidentally left those parts out in the executive summaries. He reworded their praise to say, "The Elixis engineering leadership team has exceeded expectations. There was no team. It was just me." I said nothing. I kept building, kept tracking, kept documenting. Because I had started to see it clearly. Logan wasn't just ignoring my work. He was trying to absorb it. He started showing up to meetings unprepared, then using my slides. He began saying things like, "Our back-end strategist suggested this." Never naming me. Never giving me a seat at the table. But he didn't realize that others had noticed too. Small things. Neha once overheard him rewriting one of my code commits into his weekly report. She never said a word, but the next day she quietly slipped a sticky note onto my desk. It said, "Keep your own copy, just in case." Another time, our junior analyst, Jaden, saw Logan accidentally forward a client message thanking me, and then watched him delete the thread before the all hands. Little things. But they were adding up. I never asked anyone to take sides. I didn't start a whisper campaign or collect allies. I didn't have to. Because the longer Logan tried to silence my presence, the more visible I became to the people who actually paid attention. And then came the turning point. 2 weeks before that disastrous meeting, we had a cross-department workshop with our new AI consultant. He was young, maybe mid-30s, sharp, and clearly annoyed when Logan tried to open the session. "Actually," he said, flipping through the onboarding deck, "can we hear from Mia instead? She's listed as the architect on most of this." Logan's smile froze for half a second. He recovered, of course. He always did. but it was the first visible crack in his armor. He said, "Mia's good with the technical weeds. But for strategy, Weeds?" I said, before I could stop myself. I met his eyes and held them. Everyone turned. I didn't raise my voice, didn't get emotional. I just said, "You mean the data model that just secured us a $2.1 million expansion contract?" Silence. Then Jaden coughed into his notebook to hide a laugh. Logan didn't respond. He pivoted. He always pivoted. But something had shifted. After that workshop, I started noticing the questions clients asked were directed at me, not him. Follow-ups came to my inbox. Strategy suggestions were forwarded to my private extension. Logan hated it. I could see it in the way he began nitpicking my tone in emails, CCing executives on simple follow-ups, treating every minor issue like a leadership flaw. But here's the irony. All the while he was trying to control the story, he was writing a new one. For someone else. Cora was still watching. She had quietly attended that same workshop. She saw everything. And when I told her later about the deleted folder, she didn't gasp. She didn't sound surprised. She just said, "And that's why your leadership will look nothing like his." By the time I stepped out of that conference room, after calmly accepting the CTO position and announcing my resignation, Logan looked like someone who had just watched the floor collapse under his feet. And yet, he still didn't get it. He stood up, raised his voice like he was reading from a policy manual. "This is highly unprofessional. You can't just quit in the middle of a department meeting. There are procedures. Protocols." I didn't answer him. I didn't need to. Instead, I turned to Gideon Talley, our COO, who had been silent the entire time, arms crossed, watching everything. He didn't say much either, just gave the smallest nod. Logan sputtered something about breach of conduct, about NDA clauses, about poaching. That's when I showed him the offer on my phone. "There's nothing proprietary being taken," I said. "And if clients choose to follow a person over a brand, that's not theft. That's trust." And with that, I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry in the parking lot. I just left. It was 9:42 a.m. on a Thursday. By noon, my LinkedIn inbox had 15 new messages. By 5 p.m., I was on a video call with the Ethratech onboarding team. And by Friday morning, the tremors had started inside Elixis. I didn't hear about it directly. But people talk. They always do. Especially when things start falling apart. The first thing I heard? Logan tried to recover my deleted folder. Apparently, he spent an hour with IT trying to roll back the deletion, only to discover that I'd removed my access and backed up every non-proprietary version of my architecture notes to a personal secure drive weeks ago. All completely legal, all clearly documented. He demanded that someone on my team reconstruct the product roadmap from scratch. But here's the thing. There was no team. I was the team. Every person who had contributed to the technical build was either reporting to me or had been looped in because I had asked them to be. There was no backup Mia. And worse, he didn't know where anything was. He didn't even understand how the architecture worked. He had always assumed I was just implementing the ideas he approved. Without me, there were no ideas. Neha told me, quietly, through Signal, that Logan spent the entire day walking from desk to desk with a forced smile, asking people to step up and own the vision. By Monday, 2 client accounts had requested meetings with someone familiar with the original system architect. When informed that I had left, one of them paused and asked, "So, who's in charge now?" That question echoed in more places than Logan expected. I wasn't at Elixis anymore, but my absence created a vacuum that couldn't be spun or dismissed. Because leadership, real leadership, doesn't disappear when you leave the room. Fake leadership does. By Wednesday, I got a message from Gideon. "I know this may be a long shot, but would you be open to a transition consultancy contract? The rollout is in trouble. I read that message twice. The same company that allowed my work to be deleted in front of 24 people now wanted me back, quietly, to fix what was broken. I didn't respond right away, not because I wanted to punish anyone, but because I needed to be sure that I wasn't walking backward into the same fire I'd escaped. Meanwhile, Ithratech was moving fast. I met with the executive team, reviewed our strategic goals, and presented a roadmap that mirrored what I'd tried and failed to implement at Elixis. Only this time, no one interrupted me mid-sentence. No one downplayed the user testing. No one deleted anything. They listened. They asked questions. They valued the process. And the craziest part? In just 3 days, I had made more progress with a lean team of 7 than I'd made in 3 months under Logan's command. Because when you stop having to defend your existence, you get to actually do the work. The next Friday, I got another message. This one from Jaden. Logan's panicking. Client meetings are imploding. Paragon asked if they can follow you to Ithratech. He tried to lie and say you weren't really the lead. They didn't buy it. I stared at that message for a long moment. Not with pride, not with gloating, but with quiet realization. All the long nights, all the dismissals, all the times I was told to stay in my lane. They hadn't been wasted. They had built something solid, something undeniable. Because when your value is real, it doesn't vanish when someone presses delete. I didn't gloat when the first Elixis client jumped ship. I didn't send a message. I didn't make a call. All I did was update my LinkedIn profile to reflect my new position. Chief Technology Officer, Ithratech. That was enough. Because the thing about clients, real clients, the ones who value results over titles, is that they pay attention. They remember who answered their 9 p.m. emails, who followed up after system crashes, who built tools that actually made their work better. And they noticed when I disappeared. The first to reach out was Dr. Kwan, the Director of Technology at Paragon Health Systems. "We were told you resigned," he said on the call. "But we both know that's not the full story." He didn't sound angry, just tired. "We had questions about your data integrity system," he continued. "Logan said it wasn't critical, but we disagree. We were hoping you could walk us through it at your new firm." I paused. Not because I wasn't willing, but because it still felt surreal. 1 week earlier, I was being publicly humiliated. Now, clients were following me. Not because I'd asked them to, but because they trusted me. It wasn't about revenge. It was about value. And Logan had no idea how to hold on to it. By the second week, 3 more clients reached out. And back at Elixis, things were unraveling. I got the first true confirmation from Neha, an encrypted email she sent from her personal account. Logan called an emergency meeting, blamed the tech fallout on poor documentation, and said you left things disorganized. Half the team stared at him like he'd grown another head. She said Jaden had spoken up. "Actually," he told the room, "Mia documented everything. I saw it." It was quiet for a few seconds, Neha wrote. Then someone asked the question that finally broke the illusion. If Mia wasn't doing the work, why is everything collapsing without her? Logan couldn't answer. Because deep down he knew. He hadn't just deleted a folder. He'd deleted his own safety net. See, Logan never understood that real leadership isn't loud. It's not bravado in a boardroom or smooth-talking investors. Real leadership is consistency, delivery, trust built over time with people who remember how you treated them when no one was watching. And one by one, people started remembering. At Ithratech, we were moving fast. I was given full autonomy over the product roadmap. I built a team of hand-picked engineers, some of whom reached out after seeing where I landed. 2 of them were from Elixis. They'd had enough. We didn't need to steal clients. We didn't need to smear Logan. We just had to do better work. That's what made it worse for him, because there was no scandal, no legal breach, no memo he could point to and say, "See? She cheated." There was only the quiet movement of trust, from him to me, and it was eating him alive. By week 3, the board at Elixis called an unscheduled meeting. I didn't attend, obviously, but I knew it happened, because Gideon messaged me again. "Would you be open to a conversation?" "We're evaluating leadership changes." I never replied. The next day, the news broke internally. Logan had been removed from product oversight pending review. Neha sent me a one-line update. The man who said women don't lead just lost everything because he refused to follow one. I stared at that sentence longer than I cared to admit. It didn't make me happy. Not exactly. Because this wasn't a victory I'd planned. It was a consequence he created himself. That's what some people never understand. They think when others succeed, it's luck. That people only rise by taking something from them. Logan thought silencing me would keep him in power. But silencing people doesn't erase their impact. And when people feel seen, heard, and respected, they remember the ones who treated them like they mattered, and the ones who didn't. By the end of my first month at Ethratech, we'd signed contracts with 5 former Elixis clients. Logan's product? Dead in the water. Our prototype? Already being tested in 3 pilot hospitals with overwhelmingly positive feedback. But the most powerful moment came quietly. Neha, now leading a research pod at Ethratech, stopped by my office. She didn't say anything at first. Just stood in the doorway, arms crossed, smiling. "You know," she said, "when you left, I realized something. The only reason I stayed as long as I did was because you were there. You made it feel possible." I swallowed hard, because I hadn't known that. Not really. "It wasn't just that you built great systems," she continued. "It was that you made us believe we could too." That's when it hit me. Leadership isn't about controlling people. It's about inspiring them. And sometimes all it takes to lead is to leave a place that never let you. 2 months after I left Elixis Labs, I received an invitation to speak at a regional tech leadership summit. The theme was Human-Centered Innovation, Leading Beyond Metrics. I smiled when I read the title. If you've followed my journey this far, you'll understand why. The summit had always been Logan's playground. He was a regular panelist, the kind of speaker who dazzled with big words and buzz phrases, always walking the stage like it was built just for him. So imagine my surprise when, a week before the event, I saw the updated schedule. Keynote, Mia Dalka, CTO, Ethratech. Panel moderator, Cora Eastman, co-founder, Ethratech. And beneath that, a smaller workshop listing. From engineer to executive, reclaiming your seat at the table. Canceled. Presenter, Logan Riker. That's when I knew. He was still trying to crawl back into the spotlight, but the room had moved on without him. I didn't need to say anything. I didn't tweet. I didn't comment on LinkedIn. Because the most elegant revenge is when you don't have to say a word. The truth walks into the room before you do. But the full story of Logan's fall, that came from a place I didn't expect. It was Gideon Talley, the former COO, who called me. His voice was quieter than I remembered. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I should have stepped in when Logan deleted your work. I saw it happen, and I did nothing." That silence I remembered from the conference room? Turns out it haunted more people than just me. "We underestimated you," he continued. "We assumed leadership looked like noise, authority, control. But you built trust without demanding attention." He paused. Then he asked the question I never expected to hear. "Would you consider consulting with Elixis again?" just for transition support? We've lost key accounts. Logan's contract wasn't renewed. We're trying to rebuild. I didn't respond right away. Not because I was bitter, but because I'd finally learned something. Not every bridge needs to be burned. Some just don't need to be rebuilt. So I said the only thing that felt right. I appreciate the call, but I'm exactly where I need to be. And I was. By then, Ethratech had grown faster than we projected. We'd landed 3 more hospital contracts, expanded our engineering team, and launched a beta program that was already outperforming legacy systems in speed, security, and user satisfaction. More importantly, my team didn't just work for me. They believed in what we were building together. No one questioned why I was in charge. No one asked if I had the background. No one tried to delete my contributions, because when you finally walk into a room that was built for collaboration, not control, you stop surviving and start thriving. But the moment that truly marked the end of the story, it came through a message request on LinkedIn. From Logan. No subject line, just a single sentence. I didn't realize what I was destroying until it was gone. I read it twice, then a third time. There was no ask, no apology. Just a quiet recognition that everything he'd tried to erase had outlasted him. I didn't reply, because sometimes you don't need to respond. Sometimes the answer is already written. In client loyalty, in job titles earned, in silent conference rooms where your absence is louder than anyone else's voice. And I want you to know this. If you've ever been told you're too emotional to lead, if someone's tried to erase your work, belittle your presence, or silence your voice, if you've been made to feel like you need to shrink in order to survive, don't. Because your greatest power is not your ability to fight them. It's your ability to outlast them, to build while they try to tear down, to rise without dragging anyone with you. Logan taught me that revenge doesn't need fireworks. It just needs patience. And faith that when you lead with integrity, the right people will follow, and the wrong ones will expose themselves. Today, 2 years after I walked out of that boardroom with nothing but a ringing phone and my dignity, I lead a company that's reshaping the healthcare tech landscape. And Logan? He hasn't worked in leadership since. Because when the industry finally looked past the noise, they saw the truth.